Um, in that the lecture we will see that the display device, for that the LCD 16 by 2. Here we will first that the display device, when the displaying the large quantities of that the alphanumeric data, the readout system employed a most commonly familiar CRT, whereas the CRT form as that the CRO and that the TV systems. To generate the character of on that the CRT, the generation of that the system of that the character CRT requires the relatively electronic circuit, where the first we will show that the light emitting diode, that means the LED. The LED is shows for that the figure. In that the figure A is the basically semiconductor PN junction diode capable emitting, that is the electromagnetic radiation under the forward conduction. The radiation emitted by that the LEDs can be either is that the visible spectrum on their infrared region, depending on that the type the semiconductor material used. Generally, infrared emitting light emitting diode are coated with that the phosphor, so that the by the exciting of that the phosphor visible light can be produced. Their LEDs are that the useful for that the electronic display and that the instrumentation. The advantages of that the LED using the electronic display, the LED is very small device and can be the considered as a point source of light. They can be therefore stacked in that the high density matrix to serve as that the pneumatic and alphanumeric display. The light output from that the LED function of that the current flowing through that the LED, therefore be the smoothly controlled the varying current, and this is the particularly used for that the operating LED display under the different ambient lighting conditions. The LED are highly efficient, emits that the EM radiation, and that the LED with the light output of that the different colors, that is the red, green, yellow, are that the commonly available. LEDs are very fast device having the turn on off times of that the less than 1 nanosecond. The low supply voltage and that the current requirements, the LEDs makes the compatible with that the DTL and TTL. In that the germanium and that the silicon semiconductor, most the energy released in that the front from of that the heat, and that the gallium phosphate and that the gallium arsenate phosphate most emitted that the photons have that their wavelength visible, and therefore these semiconductor are used the construction of that the LEDs. The colors of that the light emitting depend upon that the semiconductor material and that the doping level, whereas that the LEDs are that the alphanumeric LEDs are normally laid out single slice and that the semiconductor material, all the chip being that the enclosed in that the package, the similar IC, except and the packing compound the transparent rather than that the RQ. Here that the LEDs, all about that the LED. Here the next is that the liquid crystal display LCD. LCDs are that the passive displays characterized by that the low power consumption and that the good contrast ratio. They have the following characteristics in that the common. They are that the light scattering, they can operate the reflective transmitter configuration, they do not actively generate the light and depend for their operation on that the backlighting. The transmittive LCD has better visual characteristics than that the reflective LCD. The power required by that the LCD scatter and that the observer the light is extremely small, of the order of the few microwatt per centimeter. The LCD operates at that the low voltage ranging from that the 1 to 15 volt. The operation of that the liquid crystal is based on that the class of that the organic materials, which remains the regular crystal like as the structure even when they have that the melted. The two liquid crystal materials which is important for that the display technology are that the pneumatic and that the chloroastric. Here as that the most popular liquid crystal structure is that the pneumatic liquid structure. The liquid is normally transparent, but it is the subjected to that the strong electrical field. Ions move that through that the disparate way as well as that the crystal structure. In that the removal the applied for that the field loss and that the crystal structure reform the material regions is transparency. Basically LCD comparison with the thin layer of that the NLC fluid about that the 10 micro thick and sandwiched between that the two glass plates having that the electrodes, at least one of which the transparent. If the both are transparent, the LCD transmissive type, whereas the reflective LCD has only electrode transparent. The structure of that the typical reflective LCD as shown as the figure. The NLC material as shown in that the figure, the homogeneous alignment of that the molecular C, and the electrode facilities the electrical connection for that the display. The insulating spacer are that the hermetic seals. The LCD material are held in that the center cell of that the glass sandwich, the inner surface of which the coated with that the very thin conducting layer. There as that the we can either transparent or that the reflective. The oxide coating on that the front sheet of that the indicator etched to produce the signal, and that the multi-segment pattern of that the character and each segment character properly that the insulated from each other. The LCD can be read easily any situation, even the ambient light is that the strong. If the read electrode is made transparent instant reflective, that is the back illumination of that the possible by that the standard indicator lamp. The extending back illumination a step further by that the adding lens arrangement, the LCD can be used for that the slide into projection to show that the enlarge charge. Here that is the figure shows about that the LCD 16:2, whereas that the LCD 16:2, that is term the LCD stand for that the liquid crystal display, and that used for that the plain panel display technology, whereas the used for that the screen of that the computer monitors and that the TV, smartphone, tablets, mobile device. Both the displays like as the LCD and CRT looks same, their operation is that the different. What is mean by that the LCD 16:2, and that the electronic device is used to that the display data and the message is known as that the LCD 16:2. As the name as the suggests, it includes the 16 columns and that the 2 rows. It can display the 32 characters, that means the 16:2 in that the 32 characters in the total, and that the even character will be made with that the 15:8, that means the 14 pixel dots. So the total pixel with this LCD can be calculated in that the 30:14, otherwise the 1280 pixel. The LCD 16:2 display mostly the depend upon that the multi-segment LEDs. That means there are the different type of that the displays available in that the market with the different combinations such as the 8:2, 8:1, 16:1 and that the 10:2. However, the LCD 16:2 is broadly used in that the device. There is the DIY circuits and that the electronic project due to the less cost, so the programmable and that the friendly, simple to access. The specification of that the LCD 16:2 is that the operating voltage in this display range is that the 4.7 volt to that the 5.3 volt. The display bezel is that the 72 into the 25 mm. The operating current is that the 1 microampere. PCB size is that the module 18 into L into 36 watt into 10 Henry mm. Where HD 47780 controller, their LED color is that the backlight green or that the blue. The number of that the columns is 16 and that the number of the rows are that the 2. The number of that the LCD pins are that the 16 and character are that the 32. It works in that the 4-bit and 8-bit modes. The pixel boxes of that the character into 5 into 8 pixel, whereas that the front size of that the character is that the 1.25 width and that the 0.200 height, and that the LCD 16:2 configuration for that the 16:2 connection can be done easily with that the external device. The pin number is 1 is that the ground. This pin connected to that the ground terminal. Pin number 2 is that the plus 5 volt. This pin provide the plus 5 volt supply to that the LCD. Pin number 3 is that the select contrast pin of that the LCD. Pin number 4 is that the register selector. This pin is used to connect the data pin of that the MCU. Pin number 5 is that the read and write. This pin is used for that the read and write data. Pin number 6 is that the enable. This enable pins must be the high to perform read and write procedure. This pin is connected to that the data pin of that the microcontroller to yield the high concurrency. Pin number 7 is that the data pins are from that the 0 to 7, which are connected through that the microcontroller and that the data transmission. The LCD modules can be work in that the 4-bit mode through working the 1 to 3 and that the other pins are that the free. Pin number 8 is the data pin 1. Pin number 9 is the data pin 2. Pin number 10 is the data pin 3. Pin number 11 is that the data pin 4. Pin number 12 is that the data pin 5. Pin number 13 is that the data pin 6 and pin number 14 is that the data pin 7. Whereas that the pin number 15, it is the LED positive. That means this positive terminal is that the backlight of that the LED of that the display, and it is connected through that the plus 5 activated LED backlight. Pin number 16 is that the LED negative. This is the negative terminal of that the backlight LED of that the display, and it is connected through that the ground terminal and active that the LED backlight. In that the LCD 16:2, whereas that the commands in that the first hex code, this command will remove the data displaying on that the screen LCD. Their second hex code 2 is that the it is used to move the return home. Here hex code 4, it is used to modify that the cursor to the left side. Here hex code 6, it is used to change the cursor. Hex code 5, it is used to shift to display the data right. Hex code 7, it is used to data shift display to the left. Hex code 8, it is the turn off display. Hex code 0A, that means it is used to the turn on the cursor and turn off that the display. Hex code 0C, it is used to the turn off cursor and turn on display. Here 0E, it is used to that the turn on display and blink the cursor. Here hex code 80, it is used to the shift the cursor to primary line. Hex code 38, it is the 2 lines and at the 5:7 matrix. The basic working principle of that the LCD is the passing in the light from that the layer to layer through that the modules. Those modules will vibrate and the line up their position on that the 90% that permits the polarized sheet to allow the light to that the passes through. These molecules are that the accountable for that the viewing the data every pixel. Every pixel utilize the method of that the absorbing of that the light. To display the value, the position of that the molecules must be changed to an angle of that the light. So this is the light deflection will make the human eye notice data will be integrated whenever the light gets is that the observed. The LCD displays are that the thinner compared for that the CRTs as compared to LED screen. The LCDs has that the less power consumption because the function and that the fundamental principle of that the blocking instead of that the dissipating. This is the overall for that the LCD 16:2 display.